me sober up because this is a very, very sober topic. And let me give all the content warnings, all the trigger warnings for police violence, police brutality, and police murder. And in this case, is the murder of an elder. Surely by now, you will have already heard that back on August 11th, Atlanta police, the night of, I think it was the night of August the 10th, it was late. It was after 11 p.m., August the 10th, when a 62-year-old deacon of a church who was leaving his daughter's house after previously being at Bible study, Johnny Hollomon, got into a fender bender. And then the details get a little murky because some media reports said that the police officer was going to give Mr. Hollomon a citation. But then I don't understand how we go from citation to trying to put him in handcuffs, trying to get him into custody for what? For a citation? I'm confused. So in the course of the Atlanta police officer attempting to put Mr. Hollomon in custody, the officer ended up tasing him. And then Mr. Hollomon died. His children, two of his children, his daughter and his son, his daughter, Atria, I believe that's her name, and then his son, Johnny Hollomon Jr., came to the scene and tragically had to witness their father in tremendous amount of distress. And anyway, there's a lot to this. So let us all get caught up. And of course, there was an action Thursday at the Atlanta Police Department headquarters because they're not saying much. The Atlanta police are not saying much except the usual expected smearing of the victim. Somehow every media outlet, local media outlet in Atlanta that I looked at managed to tell me that somehow Mr. Hollomon was at fault during the accident. I don't see what the fuck that has to do with absolutely fucking anything. Whether or not he was at fault, whether or not he was not at fault, why is he dead? Are you trying to link together his culpability perhaps in a minor traffic accident as a reason that he lost his life? You see how that works? Didn't we talk about this on the panel with Justine Barron? The smearing of the victim. Tale as old as time. They run that playbook each and every single time. So this is what I want to do. I actually want to hear from the family. Will, if you could please cue up, I believe, was that ABC News? My bad. I did not write the credits on the doc very well. But this is going to be an interview with Anitra Hollomon, who is the daughter of 62-year-old Johnny Hollomon, and her attorney. They spoke with ABC News. And I want you guys to hear this because it's important that we hear from the family. And listen, let me say this also. I've already given my content warnings and my trigger warnings. I'm going to play some video, not at this instant, but coming up, just so everyone can be aware. That's going to be uncomfortable. But the reason I'm going to play this video is because the family wants the people to see this video. You guys know I do not do gratuitous murder of Black people. That is not how I would like to make my chops out here in these YouTube streets, by showing videos of Black people being lynched for just cause, right? Just because Black trauma and Black death is easily commodified. No, I don't roll like that. But the family wants the people to see some of these images. But let's hear from Johnny Hollomon's daughter and her attorney as they were interviewed on ABC News. Let's take a listen.
After a two-vehicle accident earlier this month led to multiple 911 calls and ultimately a struggle with one of the drivers, 62-year-old Johnny Hollomon. Police say Hollomon was at fault and was uncooperative once authorities arrived. They attempted to deploy a taser. Hollomon first became unresponsive and later was pronounced dead at the hospital. Joining us now is Johnny Hollomon's daughter, Anitra Hollomon, and attorney Mawuli Davis. Anitra, first just want to extend our condolences. We are so sorry for your family's loss. We understand that there is a witness video from the scene that the family has viewed. Tell us what you believe happened that night before and after the confrontation with police.
I believe they whatever happened, they killed my daddy. And that's what I've been saying since the thing. My dad called me. The last time he called me was at 11:57. When he called me at 11:57, he called out twice. And he said, baby, baby. He had the phone placed on speaker. I proceeded to hear him asking the officer, why are you doing me like this? You're going to treat an old man like me like this, And then the officer was very aggressive and outraged as he was going back and forth with my dad. My dad was begging. And my daddy, I heard him after that saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He asked for help 3 times. He was like, somebody help me, please, please. And after that, I didn't hear my daddy say anything. When I got to the scene, my daddy was already dead.
What were you saying during that conversation with your dad?
It was like I was on speaker, so he wasn't like the phone was physically to his ear. I could just hear him, back and forth, asking for help, saying he couldn't breathe. But physically, I wasn't like, he wasn't holding the phone. He had the phone. When I retrieved the phone was on the truck, and it was still going. I could hear like the radio. I could hear the officer. I could hear when the sirens and stuff was coming. I could hear all of those things. When I got to the scene, I was very irate. I was like, y'all killed my daddy, and I heard it. I was like, my daddy asked you several times to help him. He was telling you he couldn't breathe. He kept saying it over and over. My dad has chronic asthma, and he's had it ever since he was a child. If he tells you he can't breathe, you have to stop whatever you're doing, and you have to see about him right then.
Mawuli, what are authorities in Georgia saying about the body camera footage from this incident? Does it exist? When do you expect that footage will be released?
It's our hope that we'll have that body camera footage released this week. We have a meeting with the city tomorrow to begin discussing their disclosure of all of the evidence that they have so that this family can have answers. And that's the biggest thing. What Arnitra was able to hear versus what is being said don't fit. And the bottom line is we just have to have access to that video in order to have a better sense of what happened. Obviously, it should not have happened. This was a simple traffic accident. You should be able to go home after a traffic accident. You should not die out in an Atlanta street because you're in a collision and police are too aggressive.
Protests against the Atlanta police are planned for later this week. The autopsy is still being conducted. From your perspective as an attorney, are investigators in this use of force case being transparent about what happened that night? You're saying that something doesn't fit. I'm curious what you think is the departure from what they're saying happened and what actually happened.
The issue is there is no basis to arrest a 62-year-old man who's around the corner from his home. Again, there is discretion. Even if the officer felt like he was at fault, there's no reason to try to handcuff him. And then they tased this. He's a deacon at a church, and they're tasing him. And he's just trying to, again, call out for help. And so, I know the community is outraged about this and that there will be a protest on Thursday. And the family and all of the people who loved him deeply will be there to show their support and demand justice for him.
Arnitra, as we just heard, your father was a deacon at his church, a grandfather to 26 children. For those of us who never had the opportunity to meet your dad, give us a sense of what he was like.
My daddy was my best friend. I miss him so much. He did everything for us. And my dad always stayed in our lives. He kept all 5 of his kids together. He loved his grandchildren. He loved his great-grandchildren. They was like his joy. My daddy, he had so many people in the community that love him. There's so many babies that have been crying out. Our kids are crying out. They just don't know where to go because our daddy was our rock. That's what we depended on. That's who we looked up to. My daddy was my hero, and I was a daddy's girl. Of course, I'm the oldest. So now I'm left brokenhearted.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, we extend our condolences. We thank you both so much for talking with us. We will continue to do so in the coming weeks and months ahead. Thank you again for your time, Arnitra and Mawuli.
That is ABC News, and like I said, that was Arnitra, Mr. Hollomon's, Deacon Hollomon's oldest daughter, eldest child, that alongside her attorney. Will, if you could cue up that Atlanta Community Press Collective clip I was trying to find clips from the actual protest. I was actually having some difficulty doing so, but there was a number of rallies in advance of what occurred in front of the Atlanta Police Department on Thursday. Again, Kamal was telling us about this on the Remix Morning Show Thursday. That Thursday night was the action that they had planned. And, I consider the Atlanta Community Press Collective a reliable source in Atlanta. They were the ones who initially got their hands on, I believe it was the medical examiner's report of Tortuguita's assassination. Tortuguita, we all know, was an Atlanta forest offender. He was murdered as part of a raid on the forest. And the Georgia Bureau of Investigation never released that body cam footage. They act like they ain't had the shit, lying asses. And I am not sure if Deacon Hollomon's family is going to get the body cam in a timely manner, or if at all, from this incident. Because the cops are invested in protecting themselves. They know the heat is on them in Atlanta for stopping Cop City, right? Like, our comrades in Atlanta have done a bang up job of educating the public, of organizing the public, of taking all means and methods of actions to prevent the construction of Cop City. And the people of Atlanta are engaged. And I think the folks of Atlanta are focused on police conduct, perhaps in a way that they may not have been before, right? More kinds of people, right? Not just Black folks, right? Well, and even Black folks who may have been disengaged from the whole law enforcement process, right? There's a lot of Black folks that just be like, oh, well, the police got to do what they got to do. They got a job to do. Nah, fuck that shit. This ain't their job. Oh, I guess it is their job to murder 62-year-old men for a traffic stop. Oh, I'm sorry. Not just murdering an elder, but murdering a disabled elder. Deacon Hollomon had asthma. His daughter said chronic asthma. It does not sound as though the officer, who has been identified by the Atlanta Community Press Collective, they've identified him, the officer, the Atlanta police officer. His name is Kyran, Kiran. How do you pronounce that? Kyran Kimbrough. Kyran Kimbrough has been identified as the officer that murdered 62-year-old Deacon Johnny Hollomon. And the Atlanta Community Press Collective was on the scene this week and in the previous days for rallies in support of not only the family, but trying to get some accountability from this rotten fucking ass system. So I want us to take a look at these rally scenes, because I prefer to hear from the people on the streets, not just the family, but the community leaders and organizers and regular folks that come out to support when someone has been stolen from their family, stolen from the community, particularly from taxpayer-funded gang law enforcement, right? So let's check out this clip from the Atlanta Community Press Collective.
What they would want us to do is to keep our oppression in silos. That's right. But when we open up those containers and open ourselves up to each other, then it becomes clear that this oppression that we are experiencing is impacting all of our lives.
Are we going to continue to pretend that this is a training issue? This is not a training issue. We have an issue of racism. We have an issue of capitalism. We have an issue of people seeing our lives as disposable.
If they see you as part of a movement they want to crush and destroy, they will use whatever they can, and they have.
The prayer that this family had was that there would be people that would stand with them. Who else to stand with them, but the folks that have been doing the work over all of these years. But their voices are being minimized. Their voices are being written off as the radicals. That's the irony of it. They're trying to stop terror, but they're being dubbed as terrorists.
My daddy shouldn't have died like that. How do you die over minor traffic incident? I'm having to deal with this pain every single day, me and my siblings.
Not even the president can shoot somebody and already know in his mind he's going to get away with it. They want us to fear them so bad we don't question them. That era is over. That's right. And everybody here at home, not just in Atlanta, y'all need to meet us next Thursday, August 24th at 5 p.m., 226 Peachtree Street Southwest. Next Thursday, APD headquarters, meet us there, beat us there, have signs, be ready to speak your mind.
Powerful scenes per usual coming out of Atlanta in rallies to support the family of Johnny Hollomon, and in some attempts to get whatever accountability looks like, y'all. I don't know what accountability looks like, because no matter what, let's say if this officer Kieran Kimbrough is actually charged with anything substantial, a conviction is not promised nor guaranteed. And even if he does get convicted, that doesn't bring Anitra's daddy home. That doesn't bring granddad home to his 26 grandchildren. I mean, just think about what a loss that is. This man had 5 kids, 26 grandkids, and I don't know how many great grandkids. And for him to be gone in an instant, just like that, and at the hands of Atlanta police, no less, right? And again, him being disabled is very relevant here, because as we talk about this on this program and on this platform, not all disabilities are visible. You can't always look at somebody and tell whether or not they're abled or disabled, right? Not all disabilities can be seen. And the absolute callousness, the absolute indifference to life that Atlanta police officer showed, not only in tasing an old man, but failing to render aid. Now, I want us to show the video. I'm going to show the video. Will, if you could please get that next clip queued up, because this was actually, I believe, posted by the law firm that has been retained by Mr. Hollomon's family, Davis Bozeman Johnson Law. And it's graphic enough just because we know what it is. I mean, to the extent that you can tell what's happening. You can tell what's happening because Mr. Hollomon's children are narrating basically what happened. But again, I'm showing this because you'll hear in the brief interview between one of the attorneys and Mr. Hollomon's son that the family wants people to see this. The family wants people to see this. And maybe you've already seen this circulating around social media. And I think it was actually included in some of these mainstream media clips, small snippets of it. But I want you guys to see this again, because the family wants you to see it. Will, if you could, please.
Johnny Hollomon Jr., you shot the video when you arrived on the scene. You saw your father on the ground with people pumping on his chest. Why do you want to release this video to the public?
Because I want him to see how unjustly my father was treated over a car accident. And it hurt me so bad that I had to deal with this for the rest of my life. And not only that, when I hear my dad's name just being like dead, it hurt me because I'm a junior. That's right. And the police were wrong. And the world do need to see that.
Officer, I heard my daddy. He said,
I can't believe it, man.
I got to record it.
Y'all got my daddy
I got it.
on the ground
I got it.
like
Got
this.
it. Don't do it. No,
Y'all got my daddy on the ground like this.
my daddy.
I got to record this.
You can record it. Just back up.
I got to record this.
Oh, Lord Jesus. He posted and I heard him. I heard him. That's why I was recording it. I heard my daddy asking him, begging him, begging him. I heard it. I heard it.
On the
Ain't nothing
ground
they
like
can tell
that.
me. Ain't nothing.
I really hate, I really hate that people who have experienced a trauma have to now all of a sudden become activists. Like, I really hate that for our folks. I hate that in the worst way. You know, and of course, there are people already on the ground there in Atlanta who are willing to ride for the Hallmans and willing to ride for some sort of accountability for their dad. But I hate that Sister Anitra all of a sudden, like now she has to become media savvy. You feel what I'm saying? Like now she has to be prepared to not only grieve her father, who, by the way, will be laid to rest this weekend in Atlanta. She not only has to prepare for his homegoing, but she has to be committed to keeping his name out there, to keeping the issue out there. Because the news cycle and the media cycle is such that don't let nobody get killed by police over the weekend. You understand? Because people will be like, what happened? What happened in Atlanta? And it even took a little bit for this story to percolate out more. Kamal talked about it on the morning show. He said the city of Atlanta and the mayor's office are trying to ignore this story. Mayor Andre Dickens actually did release a statement saying that he's going to wait for the investigation. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation is on the case and he's going to wait for the investigation. He released a statement. He didn't get out there and speak his fucking face into a microphone and say any of this shit. Because clearly he's soft as scrotum skin. You know what I'm saying? He does not want Rev Kiana to get in his shit very clearly, right? And amongst others, yes? And the cowardice of the elected political class of Atlanta, which happens to be majority black, even though they are backed by white corporate dollars and the Atlanta Police Foundation and the like the cowardice of these people. Like, how dare you? How dare you call yourself black and representing any corner of that black ass city, right? And you don't have nothing to say to the people, to the family, to the survivor? Like, you don't have nothing to say in person? You just want to release statements? Next week, as you heard the attorney say, that they hope that body cam footage will be released. And I want to say I am not certain that that's going to be a thing, because it is not in the police's interest to be transparent in this regard. Had Mr. Hollomon been, I suppose, some young perceived knucklehead, right? I mean, because you know how young black men are just viewed as criminals anyway, right? When they could be they could be academics, they could be, you know, art, they could be anything. But because young black and dreads with young black and with locks, or young black and baggy jeans or whatever, they automatically get stereotyped and pigeonholed as to being bad people, right? But how are you going to explain the murder of an elderly deacon of a church who was literally leaving Bible study? And I have a feeling that Officer Kimbrough, per Anitra, the daughter, per her description, per her audio witnessing, right? I have a feeling that this white cop, I'm assuming he's white. I don't know that he's white. Because there's white and black Kimbroughs, yeah? Regardless. It don't even fucking matter, really, if the cop was white or black. The way that I'm sure how crazy this cop must have been talking to this old man. Atlanta police, Atlanta City Council, Atlanta mayor, they know that some shit might get flipped over and burned in Atlanta when they release that tape. Because ain't no fucking way that this cop was in fear for his life, or even in fear of being in danger or potentially harmed by Deacon Hollomon in any way, right? Do you think an elder with asthma is going to try to confront physically a cop? I doubt it. The fact that the police narrative is already that Mr. Hollomon was uncooperative. What the fuck does that even mean? What does uncooperative mean? Like, I need specifics. Because if he was uncooperative, he would have left the scene, right? like that's what an uncooperative person does in a fender bender when they are allegedly at fault. If I'm uncooperative, I'm rolling the fuck out. What do you think? Like, what are we supposed to believe from this take from Atlanta police? What, you think that this man muscled up on this cop? Is that what we're to believe? What is the reason that Mr. Hollomon was being detained? Why was he being placed in the handcuffs? Why was he tased? Did he raise his voice? Did he get loud? Because we've gone over this on this program, you all. You know that Negroes are not allowed to get loud with white folks in public. That's against the rules. White people fear for their life, especially police. Negroes with raised voices is enough to scare white folks, apparently, to scare them into using deadly force. Isn't that amazing? And I just want you guys to compare, if you could, this case with 62-year-old Johnny Hollomon, whom, by all accounts, does not seem to have broken any laws, and it's not even being reported that he assaulted or physically attempted to touch or harm this cop in any way. He ends up dead. And compare that to Craig Robertson out there, 75 years old in Utah, who was armed to the teeth, openly threatening political assassination of both the president of the United States, the vice president of the United States, and other high-ranking officials in the government, right? And the only reason they blamed on him is because I can only assume he was carrying that thing, right? But they had already visited him twice before, never made him give up his guns, never came at him with any sort of aggression or threats of, locking him up, to my knowledge anyway, right? And just look at what 75-year-old Craig Robertson had to do to get killed by police versus what Mr. Hollomon is alleged to have done, which, again, I don't know what the fuck he did. It doesn't sound like he did anything deserving of a taser or even deserving of being detained. So we'll see how this ends up playing out, okay? Expect way more actions, way more protests. This ties directly into Cop City because, like the sister said in the video, this isn't a training issue. Who's going to, like she said, we collectively are not going to continue to pretend this is a training issue. This is not a training deficit. This is actually exactly how they are trained. They are trained to maintain control by any means necessary. If that means using force against old people or young people, trying to remain in firm control of the situation, they will do exactly that. Officer Kimbrough, by the way, I believe is on paid administrative leave, aka paid vacation, because that's what lynchers get when they add another body to their count, right? They get paid vacation.